about the true courageous people are those who are Christians and go, this is wrong with the church. The people who are truly courageous and are willing to risk expulsion from that group by saying, you know what, we're not that perfect. In fact, maybe even the people we call enemy are correct about one or more of our flaws. Welcome, I guess this is what I'll call my people now. I'll say my liminal figures. How about that? Or liminal people. Let's say liminal figures. Welcome, my liminal figures. Everybody has something that they call their people who are on their channel, so I'll test that one out and see how well it goes for me throughout the time of me doing this. But I wanted to do this video addressing one of my favorite people that I like to watch, honestly, which is Ruslan KD. He actually just addressed Lecrae performing at Rev Warnock rally, and he had some points about that. And I'm going to just keep engaging stuff that Ruslan is saying, because he's engaging some of the things that I'm interested in, and it has a lot of connections with people. And there's like a sphere of, like, you know, the Marcus Rogers, the Paul and Morgan, the Paul Vischer, which is who I like that you mentioned there, and you know, and all these connections of different pockets of Christianity. And the reason why I wanted to do this video, I'm telling you, because there are some pockets which you have not yet addressed that I want to see how you play with these ideas. I want to see how, and my liminal people who are watching this, like this video if you think that the mainstream Christianity should be integrated with some of these other resources and the other people that seem to not be coming together. So like the intellectual dark web has not really made its way so much into the scope of mainstream Christianity. But coming back to that, you're addressing that, and people are going, Lecrae is not really a Christian because he's associated with Reverend Warnock, who has the cooties, and by association now Lecrae has the cooties. This is stupid cooties, like, discuss sensitivity thing going on, and I want to address that. But I'm glad you thought of Paul Vischer. He has great stuff on this topic, and it enlightened me a lot. I thought I knew a lot about this, and he breaks it down a lot, makes a great case for the left-right dichotomy within Christianity. And what I want to do is to add another layer to the paradigm that you're discovering, is that not only are people not educated on the left-right paradigm and even the history of those, but they're also not educated on their psychological lens. And that has connections to what if you ever, there's a book, I think I have it on my phone or somewhere around here on the wall. It's called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. So my liminal people who are who are in my circles, the people who kind of came downstream from the outbreak of Jordan Peterson, Brett Weinstein, people like that, those guys, John Vervaeke, etc., those guys all know what I'm talking about when I say the righteous mind. And there's Christians actually discussing this and think it's a valid framework to kind of interpret the lens of how people digest their religion. Right? So this is actually in the works. It's not as mainstream as many people would hope, but whatnot. And also connected to the whole liminal figure, Paul Vanderklay would be one of the people who is Calvinist, which is, somebody who's on the more fundamental-esque kind of like traditional Christian thing, but also is in the Jordan Peterson, John Peugeot, and other figures who are kind of like on the less mainstream, lesser known Western tradition type of people, lesser mainstream Christianity deal. And so hopefully, I'm meandering a bit, but I'm just trying to throw some resources out there, because there are two spheres that seem to be coming together that I hope to see kind of interact. But I'm glad that you noticed those. But the one lens is The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, which explains this, that what Lecrae is doing is testing some of the people's sacred values, and underneath these sacred values, there's like care and harm perspective. There's the authority. There's the purity, sanctity paradigm. There's the fairness, equity paradigm, and each of these groups have a way in which they view those sacred values and are under a particular lens. And so Lecrae is challenging the care harm lens of the religious right, because he is kind of not he's dismantling essentially one of their idols of abortion laws are the main dictator of who really cares and who really cares about harm. Whereas in the left has a ton of other things that they care about harm, right? Care and harm. What's being conflated between the two is that abortion law is an indicator of how you care about abortions, rather than the amount of abortions, which is what Lecrae is emphasizing, is who really cares about abortion. So that's the meat, and maybe I'll cut it right here. I'm going to put this in the beginning because I think that this is the meat of the crux between the two, or at least getting to it. I mean, the conversation hasn't been had, but we'll look at that. But the meat of it is what is more indicative of whether you care about the harm that's created by abortions. Is it the outcome of the abortion rate? Like if you go from 1,000 abortions to 800 abortions, is that what's most important, or to even 100 abortions? So 1,000 to 800, and then 100, 1,000 to 800 to 100. Or is it just the law? Now you might say, well, the law is more important because the law is going to create that diminishment. And it's like, okay, so the law is more important because it's guaranteed to do that? Or are you saying the law is more important because it's a solidified attempt at creating it, and then maybe having the feedback or completion that you feel for doing something is like really the apex of what you want? But to me, what matters the most, if we're talking about the paradigm of care versus harm and concerning abortions, is minimizing it. It doesn't matter which way it's done, unless you want to put in other factors like, oh, well, we have to do genocide and kill the populations that are having the most abortions, so we just genocide and kill them. Then we can do other aspects of care harm, but that would be outside the strict abortion argument. But the reason why I say this is because I would want to see if Ruslan has an idea on how these moral foundations, such as care harm, I think there's 5 or 6 of them. Let me look at this and I'll cut it. Moral foundations, Haidt. Moral foundations theory, and it has basically the 5 main foundations is care, cherishing, protecting others, opposite of harm. So the left is the one that cares about protecting others, right? And more so, seemingly, and fairness and or equality. That's where the social justice comes from. But the right is more of proportionality, I guess. And then loyalty. So here's the ones that the right seems to care about, the sacred values. And remember, the reason why I want to do this is because they're not aware. The Christians are not aware. Christians have split the deal, split the difference with the devil by espousing this idea that they are their rational mind, that they are their thinking, like they are their thoughts, and that their thoughts are apparent to their thoughts are apparent to them. Their thoughts are transparent to them. That their beliefs are transparent to them. And it's not really true that your beliefs are transparent to you. It's not really true that your thoughts are who you are. So the Christian will go, I believe this, and they'll recite a Bible verse. And the Bible verse is, I guess, indicative that they are in the truth, when really they just reverse engineer the Bible verse. That's why you have scripture ping pong with opposing people, because they're not deriving, and some of them are, but a lot of them are just like finding a conclusion and then reverse engineer it to find a Bible verse. And that's basically like the reverse engineering of the rationalization of your intellect. So they think that they're their thoughts, and really there's a sacred value that's beneath that, which is by and large very mysterious and unexplored by them. And it could be these things like this. And you can actually see the right and left divide based on these things, such as loyalty or in-group. The right is more sensitive to things of loyalty to the in-group. That's why they want borders. That's why they, or even, you could even give that to where the racist history of the right, like, or the alt-right, why they would be more white supremacist, like the borders want things to be divided. This is the in-group, out-group, that type of thing, family, nation, patriotism, etc. The family is like even like a loyalty in-group type of thing. That's why they want to preserve that, and they view the left as opposing that, and they're trying to subvert the family and stuff. But the left ironically has some in-group stuff too, with their little lingo. That's how they identify whether you're in-group or not. And then it goes on and so on and so on. I don't want to make this video about that, but just want to throw it out there with Jonathan Haidt, The Righteous Mind. And lastly, I want to say, perhaps Christians, I think Christians, this is another psychological thing. Do Christians know in our culture that because they're not actually going through real, what I would call real persecution, they have to do makeup persecution? We have this martyr complex. Everybody's like, they're out to get us. And the martyr complex comes from the desire to, that you're fearful, right? Because I think that our culture is largely fearful, but especially Christian culture is fearful. And so they have to like project an enemy. They're out to get us. And that's the way we huddle together in our country. We huddle together over a common enemy, just like they did with Christ. They're like, oh, Christ is our enemy. Let's huddle together and crucify him. And it united people. Wow, what a great day. But anyway, it's just, I really don't like how we do that. So that's why I just said that right there. But so we huddle together over a common enemy. We have that. And it's because we have like this unconfronted cowardice in our culture, where we pretend like we're brave in the group, just like Peter, like he's with Christ. I'm going to slice this dude's ear off. Boom. Rah. I'm brave. But then when we are alone, we're kind of like, we won't speak up for, that's why there's like, oh, I spoke up for the Lord at work, which really, that's a little bit weird. Sometimes that's like inappropriate, but that's why we get these little things that we do, like, oh, I didn't wear my mask to Walmart, and it's like, that's my, like, I'm being brave and courageous and bold and declaring the Lord. Like, that's our idea. But really, let me, and I want to know, Ruslan, if you're listening, or anyone, Paul, Morgan, freaking, damn, I can't even remember who I'm like, Marcus Rogers, you seem to act like you think you're brave and stuff like that. Lecrae, anyone and I know I'm nobody, so you don't have to respond, but what do you think about this? What about the true courageous people are those who are Christians and go, this is wrong with the church. They are a particular denomination and say, this is what's wrong with my denomination. The people who are Republican and say, this is what's wrong with Republicanism. The people who are Democrat and say, this is what's wrong with the left. The people who voted for Biden say, this is wrong with Biden. The people who voted for Trump say, this is what's wrong with Trump. You get what I'm saying. The people who are truly courageous, who are people who are in the group that they participate in and are willing to risk expulsion from that group, because that's what they all threaten you with, risk expulsion by saying, you know what? We're not that perfect. In fact, we have some glaring flaws. And you know what? Maybe even the people we call enemies are correct about one or more of our flaws. Do that. If you're I want to see you courageous, bold for the Lord people. Do that. Do that in your little tight circle. If you're in Kentucky and you're a right-wing Christian like Paul and Morgan, say something was wrong about Kentucky right-wing Christians, and then let it sit there. Because to me, this is a little bit of false courage. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I just shot this video because I felt like it. I need to stick to making videos because that's what it takes to be successful. And I gotta make them continuously and not care about how perfect they are. Anyway, my liminal figures. I will see you on the next video.